Hello, Moapa Valley. Hey, it's Friday night and it's time to relive another great moment in Pirate football history. Thanks, Dallas Larson, for the opportunity to look back at some of these great games and seasons that have occurred in the past here in Moapa Valley. What an honor and a privilege it's been for me to be a part of some of these videos and also to be a coach of these great young men that grow up here and live here in Moapa Valley. It's been fun to see them appear during the films and to give their thoughts and feelings and to see them as grown men and their recollections of these great moments in history. Tonight we're going to feature the 1992 Moapa Valley AA State Champions. This was the first year that Moapa Valley had played for the AA State Championship. It was the first year that the championship was being held at the Las Vegas Silver Bowl at Sam Boyd Stadium. As expected, and maybe give you an insight into some of the things we try to do to prepare for the 92 season.
Hey, it's Ryan Waite. I was the sophomore quarterback who moved up from the JV to the varsity in 92 for our state championship team. Jerid got hurt, and they asked me to fill in during the Virgin Valley game. I was able to play, clear up to the state playoffs, and then Toby was able to come back after that.
Hi, this is Gary Batchelor. I was asked to make a couple of comments about the state championship team of 1992. We had a great team that year. We had strong players, big players, quick players. We had a quarterback that could throw the ball, Toby Reed. We had a strong running back, more than one, but we had a big, powerful back. Anyway, we just had a good team. Carl Postma was our running back. And great defensive team, and it was a pleasure to work with these young men, and they had a desire to win.
My name is Dalley. I was lucky enough to be a part of the Moapa Valley 1992 undefeated football season. Those are great memories that I have of my senior year, and quite honestly, it made my senior year. Started it out right. Had a lot of good friends on the team. Made better friends. It was quite memorable.
One of the things I wanted to do in the 92 year was to change kind of our philosophy a little bit about positions. And we did that a little bit on defense, as I just mentioned. But on offense, we had been playing Boulder City the last 2 years and had gotten beaten 54-6 and 33-0. Boulder City was the defending state champion the year before and had played for the state champion the year before that. And I thought, what do we have to do so we can play at the caliber of these teams that seem so much better than what we were at the time. I went to our 240-pound tackle at the time, offensive tackle, Carl Postman, and I says, Carl, how would you like to play fullback? And Carl just got a big old grin and says, hey coach, that would be great. And I says, well Carl, we're gonna go out to practice, and if you can take a handoff and hang on to the ball, we're gonna put you at fullback. He says, I'm sick and tired of having to play other teams that have these big bruising fullbacks and not be one of them. And so we did. We went to practice that day and we gave Carl some handoffs. He held onto the ball, and people really didn't want to hit him in practice. And so we realized right away that we really had a treasure there at fullback, because he was going to make a difference and make teams focus on him and stopping him up the middle. It turned out we had other offensive weapons too. Casey Robison was a shifty little running back that played our tailback. Levi Gregory also complimented him and split time with him. Levi was maybe the faster of the two, but Casey just had the moves. He could serpentine through tacklers, and if you watch the highlights, he had many great runs avoiding tacklers and scoring touchdowns. They were really good on punt returns, and they ran several back for touchdowns. The other thing that we had was Steve Staley, a slot back. Now Steve was a junior, and Steve was just a tough kid, a tough runner. He had that little spin move where he'd lower his head and then just do a 360 and shake off the tackler and just keep on running. And so those were our running backs, and they just did an outstanding job.
Wayne Aston, and I remember getting hit by Wayne one of my first practices with the varsity, and that guy put the hurt on me and brought the tears to my eyes, and so I knew what it was like to get hit by a guy like Wayne Aston.
It was later in the season when Coach Matheson did a little video of everybody. Everybody took their turn standing in front of the camera, held up their number 1 sign, or showed off their helmets or whatever it was. And with the helmets, really quick, there was they gave out stickers. The coaches for a certain amount of tackles on defense, or a certain amount of passing or running yards, or certain things on offense. You got a pirate sticker on the helmet on one side, and then you got a skull and crossbones for defense on the other side, like for interceptions or fumble recoveries or anything like that. And then for each win, we got a star that went down the center of our helmets. It was a good incentive for everybody. Coach Matheson had a sense of humor also, and Rodney Gordon, who is no longer with us on the earth, bless him and rest in peace, died in a car accident a few years ago. Anyways, he had long johns on underneath his practice uniform, and Coach Matheson panned down and up his whole body just to get his whole getup, and it was quite comical. Everybody got a kick out of it, even Rodney himself.
That brotherhood of those guys, they'll all be special teammates, friends of mine for years to come, and we've even lost one. Rod Gordon, good friend of ours, and 2014 we lost him, and just want to give him a special shout out, and miss playing with all you guys. And we had an offensive line where we had seniors, juniors, pretty good mix. Even the likes of a Don Whipple, who you never looked at him as being smaller at the time, and now we get older and I think about it more, and amazing what kind of a lineman he was able to be with the size he was. Anyway, just a lot of good depth we were able to have throughout on the offensive side.
I want to pay tribute to Coach Jeff Keel. Jeff Keel was my assistant the entire time on defense and carried on for many years before that and after that, and has just been a fixture. In fact, the Jeff Keel Field and Stadium is a wonderful tribute to him and his ability to coach the defense. We had talked a little bit at the beginning of the season of what we could do with the personnel we had, and I remember one thing that I had read about a defense in Texas, and they had put their big men over the guards on the inside and put their quick kids on the outside as defensive ends, and it was a 4-4 defense. And so that's kind of how we started out the season, with Jesus Santos and Kelby Robison being the big guys over the guards, and with Thomas Touchstone, a new transfer that came in from Las Vegas that year as a senior, and also Wayne Aston as a defensive ends. Now, we put those 4 guys up front, and then in the middle we had big 240-pound Carl Postma and 160-pound Casey Rowley as the inside backers, with Jeff Lamping on the outside and Todd Tudor on the other side. And of course then we had Steve Staley and Jerid Matheson and Lon Dalley and Levi Gregory as defensive backs. And these guys were amazing as they gelled as a defense and became very quick and very aggressive.
Hello, Pirate Nation. For those that don't know me, I am Jeff Keel. I coached football for many, many years at Moapa Valley High School. And I was on the coaching staff of that 1992 memorable football season where we went undefeated and defeated Truckee in the state final. We defeated Lowry in the state finals. We defeated Truckee in the playoff game, semifinal, to get to the state finals.
Thing I remember about our team in general, we got along really well. We didn't have issues. There wasn't any drama. We weren't pointing fingers or blaming each other. We just played really well together. And I think that's the biggest factor in our success that year was we were a team. We were united and we supported one another, and we gave our all. Offensively and defensively, we just played really well together. We supported one another. That was awesome.
Yeah, so our offensive line was second to none. Just absolute powerhouses. Kelby Robison and Brian Hamilton and John Hymas and Todd Tudor and a lot of these guys that normally don't get credit, Don Whipple. These guys were tough. These guys were powerhouses, and to be able to stand behind them in the pocket, there was no fear. I knew that I had all day to be able to throw. I knew I had the opportunity to step back there and not have my blind side absolutely racked. And I could throw downfield and had all day to do so. And then, of course, we had just phenomenal receivers with Thomas Touchstone and Jeff Lamping. Even Steve Staley got involved in some of those. Casey Robison, Jerid Matheson. Watching these guys have these receptions and then make plays, it was phenomenal to watch. But all of this wouldn't have happened without such a phenomenal powerhouse of a line up front.
Hey, this is Jerid Matheson. Played wide receiver, defensive back. Jersey number was 88. The great thing about the 1992 Moapa Valley football team is that we had a lot of players on the team. We had a lot of depth. We had pretty good size for that time and some good speed and talent and ability.
A couple of the other things that I remember about the offense on this team was our running backs. We had Casey Robison, Carl Postma, Steve Staley, and watching Steve Staley was amazing. I mean, this guy could get lower than anybody I've ever seen before, and he'd put a shoulder into people and just drive them. And then there was Carl Postma, of course, who you hand him the ball and he's going to take 6 or 7 guys with him. I mean, the guy would just go. And then you've got Casey Robison, who was just fast as lights out, and he would go. He was our left and right guy, and nobody could keep up with him. So watching those guys take off with the ball, and as a quarterback, that was always amazing to watch the show that entailed thereafter.
Then we traveled to Tonopah for our third game, and I want to say it was 18-12 at halftime or something to that effect. They scored 2 touchdowns on us. They had a pretty quick running back that we had some of our Casey Robison and Eli Gregory and some of our starters were, I believe, injured that game, and so I played a lot of that game, and I was still trying to find my position, or trying to find my what I needed to do. Still kind of learned my position, and that guy burned us a few times and scored 2 touchdowns. And the coaches at halftime, I remember, took us on the bus and told us to roll up the windows. They didn't want the parents and the fans to hear the beatdown that we were given at halftime from the coaches. They sure did. They let us have it. So we came out in the second half, and anyways, the final score was 28-14. Pine game, Kelby. Robison was an animal. He was a jumping giant off the field, but once he stepped on that football field, dude was amazing. He was tough. He wasn't mean and unsportsmanlike, but he was an animal. He was strong as an ox. In that White Pine game, I remember he picked up the quarterback and slammed him on his back. One of the sacks. I think he got a couple sacks that game, but.
That was one of my best games, and it was our kind of the beginning of our season. Really set the tone for our division play.
White Pine was always a tough contender back in that day. They were usually pretty good, and that was probably one of my favorite games to watch on the highlight video. Is that White Pine game, because defense was just flying everywhere. We just really worked White Pine. Final score ended up being 21-0.
Another little memory about White Pine. After we had won the game, Coach Knudsen, who was White Pine's head coach, told our coaches that one of the things he said to his kids in the locker room was, "You just got beaten by the best team in the state. Let's go get the rest of them." And so that was a huge compliment to us. I think that was very classy of Coach Knudsen, because we did play well, and he could recognize our talent and intensity right away.
The opening drive of Virgin Valley, we had very few teams that would drive the ball on us. Usually they couldn't go anywhere on our defense, but Virgin Valley's opening drive, we couldn't stop them. I remember Carl coming into the huddle on defense and saying, "Guys, what's going on? What are we doing?" And so I believe they finished that drive with a touchdown. Their quarterback threw a beautiful pass to the corner of the end zone. Steve Saley was in position to defend it. He couldn't have a much tighter defense, but the quarterback placed that ball perfectly right over the receiver's outside shoulder, and they scored a touchdown. But after that, we held them pretty solid, and they scored one more touchdown in the last 2 minutes maybe of the game. And so the final score of that one was 35-14. Our Needles game, that one, Casey Robison had an amazing game. I want to say rushed for like 299 yards or something to that effect, just shy of 300. He was all over the place. Casey was one that was hard to bring down. In practice, he could juke you out of your jock strap. He was a running back that could turn on a dime and can keep the same speed. He was hard to get a hold of.
Another memory was the Needles game. Kelby won't appreciate this, but it was on a punt return, I believe, and Kelby was dialing in to zero down on the punt returner, and one of the Needles players came in and blindsided Kelby. The following Monday, on film, during film, Coach Matheson just replayed it, 5, 6, 10 times while we were all just rolling, everybody but Kelby. I don't think Kelby appreciated it, but He probably still won't appreciate it. But that is just another memory. So you got to get that in there, Coach Larson.
One of the things I remember about playing Pahrump, it was homecoming, and we were well motivated when we started the game, and we scored all of our points in the first quarter. I think it was 29-0 or something like that, 28. We had done well first quarter, and then offense kind of started messing around a little bit. Luckily, defense, we stayed focused and maintained the shutout, but we were having a lot of fun in the huddle and in the game. Coaches got a little bit upset with us after the game was over because we were just messing around too much.
There was a little bit of history with Pahrump leading up to that season. As we played in the 7-on-7 league during the summer, which is your receivers and running backs and your quarterback. And we went up to Utah, Salt Lake, and played some of those bigger schools up there. And then we played some of the schools down here, and Pahrump being one of them. And they held their own against us. Of course, you don't have your whole team; you just have a handful of you. So they thought they were pretty hot stuff. And then we also scrimmaged them at the beginning of that football season over at Pahrump. And again, it was just a scrimmage, and they scored a couple touchdowns on us. We scored a couple on them. Nothing real serious. So they thought they were pretty good, and they thought they were gonna come to our homecoming and just whoop us. Well, I believe the score to that game was 29-0, but I believe all 29 of those points were scored in the first quarter, if I remember right.
Coaches try to keep us disciplined. So during a game, whenever we had a penalty against us, that individual that had the infraction or created the infraction had to do push-ups out on the football field for the amount of yards the penalty was for.
This team was projected at the beginning of the year to place third in our division, and really wasn't expected to compete. And so these guys were quite a shock as they began to win games and to compete for the division championship. The crucial game, of course, came in the last game of the season as we went to Boulder City. Coach Keel met us at the bus, and he says, "Oh, you guys showed up, huh?" And that was kind of his attitude towards Moapa Valley. He just thought we were always a piece of cake and had been. Well, that last game of the season was for the division title, and we ended up winning the game 12-6. This is the game that Toby Reed did come back in the second half. About the third play that he came back, he hit Steve Staley on a long touchdown pass that put us in the lead, and we held on to win that game 12-6.
The big games that we had was against Boulder City. That was our last division game, and it ended up being the division championship. They were undefeated. We were undefeated going into that game, and it was at Boulder City. And I know the coaches, I think this was that particular coaching staff's second year, I want to say. Maybe it was their third coaching, and they hadn't beat Boulder City. And Boulder City was really good. I remember going to the game, and on the bus ride over there, Carl asked the coaches and the bus driver if he could play the song "Are You Ready" by AC/DC, and we played that. Just played it over and over once we got halfway there, and there was some pretty serious faces on that bus, and then getting ready. There wasn't much talk. We were all business. Kelby Reed was our starting quarterback. He got injured. Might even had surgery on his knee after that game. But anyways, he was out for the remaining season until the Boulder City game. He came, I don't know, it was partway into the second quarter or what point of the game. It was somewhere in the first half. Coaches put him back in because Ryan Waite was a sophomore. He was the one that stepped up, and he did a really good job as a sophomore playing on the varsity level, and carried us through to that point.
The way the playoffs were set up is that the first round, Boulder City had to travel to North Tahoe, and they won the game 17-14, and then they had to go north the second week in a row to Lowry, and Lowry had that bye, and Boulder City lost that game 10-15. And Keel Martin, the coach of Boulder, told me that that 2 weeks in a row going north just did them in, and so Lowry became the other team we ended up playing for the state championship. Truckee hosted Battle Mountain 21 and beat them 21-0. I remember Coach Matheson and I went up to Truckee. We scouted them. This is the first time we'd ever seen Truckee. It's the first time we were ever going to play Truckee, and they won 21-0. Just a quick side note: as we were getting ready to leave the game, we'd gone up and filmed the game, and Truckee was tough. We could see that they were a great team, and were undefeated. They never lost, and they dominated Battle Mountain. Many of the fans were there mulling around talking, and we heard them say, well, are you going to go down next week to play Moapa, or should we wait for 2 weeks and go down to play in the Silver Bowl when we play at Sam Boyd? And many of them were going to skip the Moapa game and take the trip down when they played for the championship. They were so confident that they were going to be playing the championship game. And I remember us talking about that, how what we were in for when they were coming down to Moapa for the next playoff game. And so really I would say the championship game for that year was played in the semifinal on our home field at Moapa Valley when Tahoe Truckee came in undefeated 10-0 against our Pirates, who were 9-0.
We hosted Tahoe Truckee. I still feel this way. That should have been the state game. The Tahoe Truckee game should have been the state game. They were undefeated again. We were undefeated.
Weekend we traveled up to Truckee and scouted the game, took notes and notes on where we could attack offensively, what we had to do defensively, where their strengths were, the plays that they like to run, and what we had to do to stop them. But what was surprising to me is kind of the arrogance of the people, not only of Truckee, but for me, it's all of California. They seem to be a little bit arrogant. But as we came into this football stadium, the three coaches, myself, Nick Bowler, and Martin Matheson, we had a student assistant with us. He came up to help, but he filmed while we took notes. But as we came into the football stadium, if you've been to Truckee, the stands are all on one side. There's not many on the visiting side, and it's in a bowl. So we're walking past the Truckee people, and they have the gall, the nerve to say, you've wasted your time and your money by coming up here. You could have stayed at home because the game next week is going to be the same result, whether you're here watching us or whether you stayed home and not watch us. So we said, well, we'll just wait and see. We'll see you next week.
I don't know if Dallas is going to show much of the Truckee game. It was an ESPN instant classic. The heroics of that game were just a few. I'll just talk about a couple of things that happened in that Truckee game. Defensive struggle to start off, and then Truckee hit about a 25-yard pass to their tight end Mueller, and Casey Robison was able to catch him and knock him out of bounds at the 1-yard line.
The The thing about this football team is no one scored a rushing touchdown on them all year long. And with Truckee, the first quarter, they had an opportunity to score. We thought that streak would be broken.
So Truckee had a 1st and goal at the 1, and first play they lost yards.
Truckee was used to running over everybody, and the first 3 downs, they marched backwards. We pushed them backwards. They couldn't punch it in the end zone. We did an amazing goal line stand.
Third play, they tried to pass, we tackled the quarterback, lost yards, and so they were forced to kick a field goal, and so Truckee went ahead 3-0.
The Tahoe Truckee game was an exciting game. Both teams ready to play, amped up, wanted to go hard. It was going to be a tough fight. You could tell right from the beginning. Both teams wanted to go out and show each other what they were made of. We had heard about Truckee all year for the last half of the year when we started, getting a feel for what was going on, and we knew what we were capable of. And of course, you start hearing the things up north and who's doing what up there, and we knew we were in for a fight.
We needed to play Truckee in our place, and Truckee is a very talented football team. They always have been, and probably always will be. Very well coached. They fly to the football defensively. They get after it. They sprint to the football. When that play is started and they recognize what the play is and who has the football, they gang tackle. And so they have 5, 6, 7 bodies flying to the football. And if you're standing around on offense and you don't have your head on a swivel, they're going to maybe end up on your backside because they're going to fly to the football. And if that Truckee player doesn't get to the football, they'll find one of the opponent's players to hit.
This Kelby, another memory from Truckee is that was just a grueling, brutal game. It was just a fight every play, a constant effort, 100%. All we could give, all we could do.
They had the ball and it was on their own 10 or 15 yard line, and Jesus Santos just drilled this guy, hit him, face mask to face mask. And remember his face mask, when he got up from the pile, he picked his face mask and the brackets had broke, and so he could pick it up and let it flop back down. He was showing the ref, and
minutes to go in the half, or it was in the second quarter. We held Truckee, they punted,
and it was a low, short kick. Casey Robison fielded it, and then I remember Kelby Robison was one of them, put a big block on, and a couple other big blocks on the punt return team, and Casey was able to run it all the way to the end zone for a punt, return the punt for a touchdown.
We missed the extra point, and so we were ahead 6-3. So we had the lead, and we were doing great, and we had held them. And in fact, we ended up with the ball about midfield just before the end of the half, and we had a timeout. There was about, I think there was about 20 seconds left in the half. I went out to the huddle. We had called a play against White Pine, what we'd practiced. We like to play a lot of fun plays, and we had the hook and lateral play. We'd used it at White Pine. We'd completed it and got a good gain, and so the kids wanted to run the hook and lateral. I says, okay, let's run the hook and lateral, see if we can score one more touchdown before the half. As I came back to the sideline, all the coaches said to me, you didn't call the hook and lateral, did you? And I said, yeah, I think we did, so watch out. Well, our receiver that we're throwing to, Lampy, he falls down. This Mueller kid, the same 99, intercepts the ball and runs it back for his touchdown with 13 seconds left to go in the half, and kicked the extra point, and now we're down 10-6 at halftime. I have never been so sick in all my life, and I know the team was just sick that this had happened, that we had made that mistake, and I take all the responsibility for allowing them to try that and to make that call, and I don't know, it was tough. It was a tough halftime, and it was a tough feeling that we had to overcome trailing after something like that had happened.
But I do remember Coach Matheson at halftime. I think Kelby was just the closest lineman, and he grabbed a hold of Kelby's face mask and just screamed at Kelby, but he was referencing all the linemen and telling them to make their blocks, get off their blocks on defense, and this and that. And just Coach Matheson was someone that was full of fire, and he could ignite that to you. That was contagious too.
But I'm sure when we were in that locker room, I'm sure we got a good wake up call from coaches, and we heard about Coach Matheson's talk with the comeback here. And he was a great motivator. And anyway, we got back out there, went at it again. And it was just a dogfight.
Yeah, they never scored an offensive touchdown, so that's to our credit. Our defense did a good job. We bend but not break. But grueling, wonderful game. We came out on top. Hallelujah.
The final thing I'll say about that Truckee game was the score stayed the same, 10-6, going into the fourth quarter, and Truckee was eventually on the move. They were wearing us down, and I read about Carl Postma's comments about the Truckee. He says those guys could hit. They were tough, they were big, and they were definitely the top-rated team in the state. That's what they've been rated all year long, as the #1 team. And they were driving down and got down to about our 10-yard line, and they ran an inside reverse, and one of our linebackers penetrated through there and kind of hit the runners as they were going by each other, and they fumbled the ball and stopped the drive, and we ended up getting the ball, and again, going back and forth. It turned out that we had were able to mount a little bit of a drive, and we were headed down now into the fourth quarter, going down towards the goal, and got to about the 20-yard line. The play that I'll never forget in that game was when Toby Reed went back to pass, and Steve Staley, we put him in motion, and we sent him on a post across the middle, and Toby hits him right in stride about the 8 or 9 yard line. Steve catches the ball, and as he's running to the goal line, he's running full speed, he gets hit by 2 Truckee defenders, and the ball comes out right at the goal line. And the ball dribbles through the end zone and completely out the end zone. Now, what happened? Did he score or did he fumble? And the referees got together and they talked for about 5 minutes. Nobody knew whether he had scored before he fumbled or whether the ball had gone out the end zone. Well, the referees decided that it was an incomplete pass. They couldn't make because either way, if the ball had gone out the end zone as a fumble, then Truckee would have had the ball. And of course, if we'd have scored, it would be a touchdown, we'd go ahead. And so the referees decided that it would just be an incomplete pass. And if you watch the play, he catches it and runs for about 5 yards before he ever gets hit. So it definitely wasn't incomplete. And as I protested with the refs about getting the call for the touchdown, they says, "Hey coach, shut up, it's 4th down, you got one more play." So we decided to call for that last play. It was a play that we had used in practice, and where we had thrown it to Casey Robison. He was probably one of our great receivers, and we put him at tight end. Now, he'd never played tight end. He's always been a running back. And as they get lined up, I remember him wandering around trying to figure out where the tight end was supposed to line up, and we thought we were going to get an illegal procedure call on it. But we ran the play, and Casey ran a post pattern to the end zone, and Toby found him, and he caught the ball with about 2.5 minutes left, and put us ahead and kicked the extra point, and we went ahead 13-10.
and they got down to, I want to say, the 15-yard line. There was, time was running out, and they threw the ball up in the air towards the back of the end zone. And Steve Staley was there to defend it. So it was, Coach Boulder called timeout, trying to ice the kicker a little bit. You can hear in the video him hollering, time, 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 time. And then strategy worked. Their nationally ranked kicker shanked it to the right, missed the field goal, so the ball became ours, and we nilled out the clock, and we won that state semifinal game 13-10.
It was the last year playing at the old school field. In fact, as we won that Truckee game, we wanted to dedicate the year. The homecoming theme was 33 years of glory. And the field had been used for 33 years by the high school, and we wanted to make sure that that last season at the old high school football field, we never lost a game during that time. And that Truckee game, of course, was the key win that sent us on into the state championship. As they did the player introductions, they came out and were really putting on a show and showing how fired up they were and how much they were going to just kick our rear ends. And it was just funny watching our players on the sideline as their players were introduced. They were saying, "Who do those guys think they are? What's going on here? They think they're the tough guys?" And it was just kind of funny just to see that how we thought of ourselves. I think the biggest tribute I would say about this team is the fact that it improved every week. This was a team that just got better and better and better. Defensively, offensively, the players just, I've spent the last couple of days watching the highlight film about 3 times. And I'm amazed at watching the way they blocked, the way they tackled, the way they swarmed, the way they pursued. And, it was just totally amazing the effort that went into the way they played the game. And that's one of the key ingredients of a championship team is one that just gets better and better every game, so that at the end of the season they're playing their best football. And this team surely, by the time we had played Truckee and then Lowry, had become one of the great football teams in Waapa Valley history.
Lowry's football team, they were a good team. Lowry was not a running team. They were mainly a passing team. And I think they had watched some of our game film and got scouting reports from teams that we played that said it's going to be tough to run on Moapa. And so they came out, they were throwing the football.
On the Lowry game, we gave up 69 total yards, total offense to Lowry in the state championship game. They had 21 yards rushing on 24 attempts. We had 4 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries. And so you can see, again, the defense totally dominated. Lowry never was threatening to score any time during the game.
One of the memories I have from the state championship game, we were pretty excited to be playing in the Sam Boyd Stadium. They had announcers and they did the big thing where they introduced everybody, and they introduced Lowry first as the visiting team, and they came out and they lined up and folded their arms and tried to stare us down like they were going to intimidate us or something. It didn't really work. And we came out when they announced us, and we turned our back to Lowry and waved to our fans, our family and everything, and then we proceeded to shut them out in the state championship game. It was it was sweet to put them in their place.
Our first scoring play with Lowry was a defensive struggle, kind of back and forth, and later on in the half, we got the ball down close to the goal line, and we ran the dive play to Carl. Now, Carl was our workhorse. We found that he could get through the line and carry tacklers for 2 or 3 yards, and in fact, Carl ended up gaining 103 yards, 109 yards for the game, and had a couple of touchdowns, or had 1 touchdown at the end of the game to seal it. But Carl was certainly the main focal point in our running attack. I remember the first scoring play, we just run a dive to Carl, and I noticed how all of the defenders had really focused in on Carl and had come pursued him. And I says, hey, we call the pitch and, we'll score. And so Coach Batchelor, he called the option play, and Toby faked it to Carl and then pitched it to Levi Gregory, and Levi Gregory just darted down the sideline and did a great run, and then scored that first touchdown and got us ahead 7-0. Just a little bit about Chip Pulsford. Chip Pulsford was our extra point kicker and did an excellent job. He was fun. He wasn't always the most could kick it the farthest, but he was pretty accurate. He'd make it down the middle, and a lot of times the ball went over about 5 or 10 feet over the thing, but he was consistent, and we really appreciated Chet and his ability to kick the football.
Second half, Carl became a workhorse. He was running plays, and he would get tired, but he stayed in. He rested a little bit on defense when he could, but he never came off the field. Carl was making 10-yard runs, 12-yard runs, 3 or 4-yard runs. They'd stop him, and then would run him again, and he would make a 10-yard run. Most of the yards that Carl Postman got, I would probably say about 80% of the yards that Carl got in that game rushing were after he was already hit and after another Lowry defensive player was hanging on and being drugged down the field. Carl would just get those big, massive legs turning and lower his shoulders, and he would just drive and get everything he could.
The second scoring play that we scored on was a play that we had made up in practice that week. You know, when you run against your own defense, they get pretty wise to all your plays. And so Coach Keel over there, he had his defensive guys always fired up to, you know, zero in on whatever we were trying to run our plays. And so I thought, well, you know, we got to do something different. And so what I did is in practice, we called Casey Robison to come out of the backfield and do a kind of a just a swing route around the left side and to go deep. And so we ended up calling that play in the game and said that we'll just call it the special. And so Toby took the ball and rolled out to his right and had a little pursuit after him. And he cut back and then looked, and there was Casey all alone in the end zone. And he threw the ball and caught it for the touchdown pass for the second touchdown of the game. But that was a play that we had just made up a few days before in practice.
Number 12, Robison, back to punt for Lowry. Jerid back to punt for the Pirates.
We did score a defensive touchdown. I think Jeff Lamping picked off a pass. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, he got tackled on about the 2-yard line going in. We run our offense out, and of course, you know who's going to get the football, Carl Postma. And Carl gets the ball and runs through a couple of players and gets into the end zone.
If this 92 team had any kind of reputation, it was its defense. It has to be one of the best, if not the best, defensive team in the whole history of Moapa Valley High School football. This team established records that I do not believe will ever be broken. They went undefeated, 11-0. They had 6 shutout games. They only gave up 49 total points for the entire 11-game season. This team was never scored upon in the third quarter. This team only gave up 12 points in the second half the entire season. This team just goes on with some of the things that it did, and it was its defense that kept us into every game. And it was that defense that established the character and the tenacity that allowed us to carry on and become one of the great teams of Moapa Valley.
That was a team that started out the year with a bunch of players, a bunch of kids not knowing where they fit in, and coaches not knowing where we could fit them in. But as the season went along, we found positions, and some of those players, some of those kids, they stepped up. They played out of position, and they played very well. We turned kids into animals that year. So this is one of the teams that all of Moapa Valley should be proud of, and those players, you have something to remember. You know, you got a state championship ring. You played in the Silver Bowl. I think that was the first year we ever played in the Silver Bowl. But we made some memories that year, and I'm proud of those players.
It was a great experience, something that was special. I still have all my memorabilia, something that I really cherish and fun to have, and some of it I had to stop wearing because I was getting it wore out, and I thought, I'm not going to have this stuff to look at if I ever want to down the road, and it's just been a really great thing.
I'm proud to be on the coaching staff of Nick Buller as the head coach and Mark Matheson and myself as assistants. And I believe we even had Coach Jerid Batchelor as one of our assistants that year.
What an amazing a season it was. One of the few undefeated teams out of Moapa Valley High School, and some fond memories for me.
At the end of the game, of course, we won the game, and what a great feeling to win the state championship for the first time as a coach. I had won state championships as a player a couple of years when I played at Moapa. And to come back and win as a coach, I just can't describe the feeling that it was to win a state football championship. And it's a tribute to the young men who really did all the work and accomplished so many great things during the '92 season.
The NIAA and Pizza Hut are are proud to present the 1992 state championship trophy to the number 1 AA high school football team in the state of Nevada. Congratulations to Moapa Valley High School.
One last memory I wanted to share about the whole season was I had played the year before as a junior, and Moapa stunk it up. I think we may have even had a losing season. It wasn't good. If it wasn't a losing season, it was dang close. And there was a lot of pressure to do well. I know Coach Bowler felt it. Luckily, they didn't take that out on us. They made some adjustments to the way they ran their offense and their defense, and they treated us with respect. They didn't blame us. They didn't stress us out or anything. They just let us be who we were, and we had a great season. We had a great time, and I really appreciate the coaches. They were intense. They worked hard, and so did we, and we had a great time doing it. Thank you, all of you. Wonderful memories I'll have my entire life.
It was also the very first year that started the tradition of the fire trucks and the ambulances meeting the school bus. We had won the game at the Silver Bowl at Sam Boyd Stadium, and on the way home there was only about 12 kids on the bus. Most of them had gone home with their parents and everything, but we get to the exit on I-15 and they're meeting us we're wondering what's going on because we see all these red lights and there's fire trucks there waiting for us. None of us had any idea that this was going to happen. And so the fire trucks took off and the bus followed them, and we went all the way through town, and that was the very first time that that tradition came into existence, where the volunteer fire department and the men of the valley started that tradition of greeting the state champions back into the valley. And I remember what a thrill that was to experience that for the first time, and then to watch it happen again in '95 and with the other state championships as they occurred through the years. But that's a tribute to Moapa Valley and the community, and to the fans and the parents, the kids. What an amazing place we live, and what a tribute it is to go back and look at some of these just great moments in Moapa Valley history.
I want to thank Dallas Larson. Dallas has taken a lot of time to put together these videos in the fashion that he does, with inserts from coaches, little blurbs here and there from players, and then putting it on the internet for all of Moapa Valley and the world to see, really, if they want. So I'm grateful for him. My kudos go out to him. Dallas, you're doing a great job. Looking forward to seeing some more of these state games on.